Talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future...
And welcome back, folks. We are Dr. Judy WTF, and I'm getting a nice vibration on my headset here. I'm Walt Lusk, your host, and we have our theme song back after technical difficulties.
I know,
last couple
I
of
can't
weeks.
think without it.
I know, it's like we're so used to having the show start with it.
And the vibrations, they're just good vibrations, so don't worry about it.
Even though the song is called Club to Death, it's always good vibrations. That's from The Matrix, folks. We are here working on our amazing mind map that was developed by Dr. Judy about 12 years ago. So she's been perfecting it since then, even though I have a belief that perfectionism is fatal. And we are in panel 5 tonight, which is denial. So there's no denying it, folks. You are listening to Dr. Judy WTF right here on UBN Radio Network.
Well,
and
it's also expanded to defense mechanisms. Denial is one.
Denial is one of them, and
right.
Defense mechanisms is more
it's
broad.
Huge.
Excuse me.
It's huge. Right.
So
there are many, many, many.
Well, I won't defend it then.
Okay, no, don't. Neither will I. So drop all the defense mechanisms, and don't forget to call in, because this is a call-in show.
It is a call-in show. We are live here on Thursdays, and you can call us in 323-843-2826. Again, that's 323-843-2826. And you can pull our shows, for those of you that want to, on Stitcher and iTunes, and of course here at at Universal Broadcasting Network.
So, Walt, what do you think is the biggest defense mechanism in America?
I would probably think it probably is denial.
Okay, that's one of them.
Yeah, I know that. I mean, there's a bunch, but I mean that's.
And it's not just a river in Egypt, right?
No, it's definitely not just a river in Egypt.
So we're going to talk about a lot of them, because there are a lot of defense mechanisms.
There are a lot of defense mechanisms, and when you hear one that resonates with you, you can always call in, because we want you to get on the couch with Dr. Judy, because that's what the show's all about. But we know, I wanted to start with, since you actually have a phenomenally huge practice here in the LA area, a success story that's popped up this week from one of your patients.
Sure.
Any come to mind?
One comes to mind because it was just so quick. It really even shocked me insofar as how quickly this got resolved and how deeply it got resolved. And while we're on the subject of defense mechanisms, there are two defense mechanisms that were operating here. So just to keep the confidentiality, a young man from another country who was persecuted in his country and came to America. And the problem is that he was really safe within his cocoon, the defense mechanism of the family cocoon, but the world was really not that safe. And so when he arrived at America, he had this perception that it was still not safe, because the children wouldn't talk to him, they wouldn't play with him, he spoke another language, and it was really, really bad. And so he developed a very, very strong dependency on his mother, and one of the ways in which he coped with his life was through obsessive compulsive disorder.
OCD.
Right, but behind the obsessive compulsive disorder, so this is how sneaky defense mechanisms are. We think it's OCD, except that behind the OCD is a paranoia. Okay? And then the OCD is just a way to keep everything in check and control the world, because this is a case where this young man felt really out of control in his world, and so as a result of this out of control, he thought that he can at least control checking the door, he can control making his bed several times a day, he can control, but
so he thought he could control his environment?
Right.
Of sorts?
Right, but it was eating his mind up. It was making him in mental jail. And he had been on every single drug possible. We
I'm
went
sure
through
you
the
have.
list. I was taking copious notes, and I wrote down, so what have you tried in the past? And it was Prozac and Zoloft and Xanax and Effexor and this, that, Wellbutrin. And it's like, okay, are you on any of them? Nope. Okay, have you seen a shrink before? Yep. How did that go? I guess not too well. I'm sitting here. And so what we started working on is really exploring the old defense mechanism which used to work. So what's wrong with defense mechanisms is that at some point in life they work, and then they get outdated.
Well,
And,
why argue with success, right? It works.
well, because after a while, it's the prison. It's kind of like the dungeon.
I was gonna say that's different than the dungeon, isn't it?
It is. It's a
Okay.
mental dungeon, but it
Okay.
comes from the dungeon because where it came from is that there was a lie being told. And the lie being told is that there was never an updated file that the world was okay, because I think that there was some sort of a sick dependency going on between the mother and the son, and it was a codependency. And the lie was that the mother kept this young man locked within her boundaries so that she can feel better
Well,
and
we
safer.
we all know that childhood really is a hostage situation.
Well, this was expanded way beyond
Yeah.
childhood, let me tell you that. Okay, and so there was some sort of a sick, good feeling that the mother got out of the son being in her nest. Okay, and she was giving beyond womb service. And it just went on and on and on into his 20s. And so what we really discovered was that he was using the OCD also to check this immense anger that he was really feeling toward his mother. And so what happens is that when anger turns inward, of course, it turns to depression.
Yes.
This is something that we talked about a lot.
Right.
But sometimes the depression also goes into other ways of repression. Okay, other ways, sometimes the expression goes into other ways of repression. In his way, such unique styles. We're such interesting human beings. That's why I really hope that somebody calls in today, because I like to just work live, and I want to explore your minds.
You want someone on your couch.
I
know.
want somebody on my couch.
Yeah, yeah.
That's my wish for today.
Okay.
Okay, that somebody take down their defense mechanism and actually pick up the phone, and I
And not
promise.
and don't be too defensive.
And don't be too defensive.
Yeah.
Okay, but what ultimately happened was that this person started to see how angry he was at being locked in jail by this dependent mother. And when he started expressing his true feelings behind the repression, then there was a lightness of being that literally started shining through. And when we started taking down the defense mechanisms, isms, and understanding that they were way outdated, way outdated, then he started shifting, literally paradigm shifting his whole world view. And when he challenged me by saying that he was really scared that the OCD would come back, because by session 4 he was like a free man. His whole countenance had changed.
So in other
His
words,
whole
and again,
body language has
folks,
changed.
4 sessions. That's if it's
Yeah,
one a
4
week.
sessions.
That's a month.
Yeah.
It's all of a month.
And I take the temperature
Yes.
at the beginning, and I take the temperature of the OCD level in the middle, and I took the temperature of his OCD, and he had gone from a 9
Out of a scale of 1 to 10.
out of a scale of 1 to 10 down to a 2
and
by
folks,
session number
that's
5.
one of the things I really appreciate and I'm aware of, because I've kind of been around mental health for years and years and years. She's one of the ones that actually takes the temperature of the patient, the client, to see how she's doing. She wants to know. And I guarantee you, 99 of 100 therapists out there, they don't want to know how they're doing because they aren't sure how well they're doing, and they don't want the truth.
Well, truth is the light that we shine on the situation, and that's
Absolutely.
the get out of jail free card.
Yes,
Because
it
once
is.
he started telling the truth that he was really upset at his hostage situation, and once he started seeing that this outdated defense mechanism was just a way for him to stay dependent on his nest, his mother, then he started reevaluating it and relaxing with it.
Well, I'm sure that happened rather rapidly once the the stuff has been realized of the cause of it.
Well, today, Walt, I have to do these continuing education units, and I've got to do 36 of them a year. And today,
all us professionals have to do CE, continuing education.
And today I had the privilege of being in a seminar on happiness and the psychology of happiness, and I think there were a lot of really wonderful themes that were discussed, one of which was gratitude, and we talk about that a lot, and
Attitude,
appreciation and kindness and unconditional love, which is the most healing force on the planet.
Yes, it is.
And yet again, I saw in my very own profession that my own profession still wants to gloss over things. And I do respect brief therapy.
Are they in denial?
Well, I don't know, but they seem to think that it's okay just to say, let's not concentrate on the problem. Let's just move past the problem because that's depressing, and let's get to the solution. And I guess it may work for some. However, the way I see it is that if we don't get to the cause, which is really the breeding ground for pathology, and if we don't take the bacteria or the virus, so to speak, the psychological virus, and really clean that out through expression, debug it, and trace it and see how it gets into the fiber of the person's being. I don't care how many affirmations a person will say, and please call in. Just let's have a healthy debate about it. But I just don't think that glossing over it and putting a smile on yourself and being happy, 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 like the song says, okay, I just don't think that that's the ultimate solution. It may work for a little while, but then something's going to hit.
So what you're saying is, in terms of a Confucianism, he or she who stick head in sand will get butt kicked.
Which is the denial.
Yes.
Correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. So there's a big denial going on, which is that we're not supposed to talk about how our parents hurt us. We're not supposed to bring that subject up. Why? Because we don't really understand that the key is not that we blame them. It's not that we shame them. It's not that we throw them under the bus. The key is that we have to take this repression out of our system, and once we start expressing it therapeutically in a healthy manner, and not to the perpetrator usually, because they will defend and they will throw it back at you like darts,
then deny.
And then you will be more injured. And usually the parent who is the person who is the injurer was, don't forget, also injured. Multi-generational transmission process, right?
Yeah, the deck is stacked against you.
Totally stacked against you. So that's the person that will not heal you unless they're trained to heal you. And I do a lot of training with parents to heal their children. So
the ones that want their children healed.
Yeah, the ones that do. Right. So folks,
and it's a call-in show. So if you want to call in and talk about your own denial or your parents' denial, heaven forbid, 323-843-2826.
And Walt, you can call in too,
You know what? I'll see what I can do about that.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
I'll
get on my cell phone and call you.
I might take your call first.
Oh, well, thank you.
And then you can put me on the couch, and I can put you on the couch, and you can put me on the couch, and we can shrink each other.
There we go.
And then shrink the tune at the end of that.
And we will be shrinking a tune, and
yes,
we've got a very special tune today. It's sort of like one of the defense mechanisms is acting out, by the way. So stay tuned, and we'll be shrinking that tune, which those of you who are new listeners, we take a popular song, I read the lyrics, Dr. Judy sort of interprets it through her experience and mind map, and then, of course, we play the song. And you'll never hear the song the same again, guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So a defense mechanism is really a wall against, a protective wall against the wound, the original wound of disconnect. So think about being wounded, and think about, let's say your skin is opened up, it bleeds, right? And you've got to make sure that no bacteria gets in there and keep it clean and all that stuff. Right. Okay, so a defense mechanism is sort of like the white blood cells going in there and erecting an army and doing the job. And defense mechanisms are good, but as I said before, they get outdated, and some of them are downright not so good.
Well, and some of them do come with a cost. I've got, as I have in the last previous shows, I've wanted to read a portion of your new book that's coming out, Healing Human Disconnect. And, a human defense mechanisms, unlike their animal counterparts, are psychological strategies of the unconscious mind to manipulate, deny, and distort reality to defend against feelings of anxiety, guilt, shame, humiliation, and unacceptable impulses that threaten our conception of mind, self, and ego. You have learned all of that as an infant. The first pains we become aware of are internal, having to do with institutional drives such as hunger, elimination, and emotion. These drives create tensions in our infant bodies that over time we learn to represent and react to. As our representation of the world becomes more sophisticated, our ability to control, tolerate, and avoid pain also similarly becomes more sophisticated.
And sometimes when we're not soothed properly,
yes.
which comes from the first few days,
yes.
first few months
yes.
and years of life, because our soothers are our primary caregivers, usually mother, father, and when we don't have that healthy attachment, the secure attachment, we're open to these wounds. We don't know how to comfort ourselves. We don't know how to regulate our emotions, self-regulate, and then we're in trouble. And then we start using unhealthy defense mechanisms. For example, this week I had a young man come into my practice. He was using methamphetamines as a defense mechanism, and I helped him to understand that what he was really doing, because he had so much mother-infant disconnect. His mother actually took off for half a year because she needed to leave the country to earn money, and so at a tender age,
he was abandoned.
From his perspective, yes,
yes, he was abandoned.
Yes, he was abandoned, and children don't react to that very well.
No.
Okay,
I know I don't.
I mean, I think that if you have been tuned into some of our shows, I've mentioned how I will reenact human disconnect by picking up my cell phone in the session and showing a person, child, and adult, what it really is all about and how delicate we are. And so when I'm conducting a session and I ask a person to express themselves, and then I pull out the cell phone, right, and they can't even talk straight, they can't think straight, it's as though I'm seeing ADHD or ADD right in front of my eyes, attention deficit disorder. Why? Because we need each other to connect to have the brain calm down. It's that connectivity.
Yes.
We are wired to connect. That allows us to think.
And one of the premises of healing human disconnect is that, Judy, I believe that we as individuals, we as part of a couple, we as families, we as a nation are more humanly disconnected than we ever have been. And part of the guilty party, of course, is this all-important smart cell phone, right? So
smart.
It's
right?
Yeah, it's making us
So
dumber
smart.
and dumber all the time.
So think about all the defense mechanisms out there. I have porn as a defense mechanism. I deal with individuals who use pornography as a way to distance themselves from connecting because they're so scared of intimacy. And that's how that one works. So if you don't get your heart involved with somebody, if you just objectify them and use them as a sex object, well, cool. You never really get to feel, and so you never get hurt. And if you have a blueprint of mother-infant disconnect, and the first blueprint is that your mother severed the connection, whether it be because she was emotionally unavailable, or she was physically abusive, or she left, or she handed you over to caretakers too early, whatever the case may be, now the person has to have a heart guard on because it's too painful to make emotional connection.
Right. And
Better just have
in
the
many
sexual
instances
connection.
they're probably afraid they might be abandoned, right?
Right. So this way they stay safe. I call it put the heart guard on.
Okay.
Put the condom on your heart.
Okay.
Okay.
And heaven help you if it breaks.
Yeah.
But so a little more of the book here. The different sizes of what we call isms. And what are isms, Judy?
These are the defense mechanisms, and some of them are healthy, and we'll get into
yes,
that
some of
later.
them are healthy.
Right.
represent the level of development in your life. Your healthy isms reveal synchronicity, equilibrium, and stability, but unhealthy isms can also represent the size and weight of the injuries you have been struggling with from early on that cause your present addictions, obsessions, symptoms, and/or dis-ease.
So if you can, do you mind putting the mind map up
Sure.
there? And
Those of you that are listening, you can go to www.drjudywtf.com. But here's a shot of the mind map.
or put the whole thing up there.
Yeah,
And
there's a
I
whole
just
mind map.
want to I want to
It's
show
it's 9 panels.
I want to show you guys a process, because the isms, which are the defense mechanisms, are kind of like the let's put it this way, the hatched version of the psychological virus. Okay, so there's the wound, and then it's incubating, and then over time it goes into a reactive mode, and then it encodes into the fiber of the person's being. So I'm going from panel 1, which is the wound, to the reaction, which is panel 2, and then the encoding, which we spoke about, which is our negative core beliefs, and then the breakdown of that. And nobody likes to be in chaos, which is the panel 4. So what do? We surround ourselves with a protective mechanism, a defense mechanism, so that we can cocoon ourselves in and stay safe. So these defense mechanisms are very varied. Smoking is a big one.
Smoking is a huge one.
Yes.
Over 22% of the country here in the United States smokes.
Right. And
today.
I used to work with smokers for the first many years of my life as a counselor. I wasn't a psychologist at the time. I ran a clinic that I created called the Habit Breakers Stop Smoking Clinic, and hence wrote a book called Dr. Judy's Habit Breaker Stop Smoking Plan. So very familiar with smoking as a defense mechanism, and then there's the addiction part. So
yes,
bam, the two go together,
yes,
and it's
hand in glove.
It's the dungeon. Once
it's definitely
again,
a dungeon, and you
right.
can go to esmokedquit.com, is Judy's website, or you can actually look up Dr. Judy on Amazon and find her book. It's sold well over 250,000 copies on how to quit smoking. And with interaction with Judy, she believes there is she's not going to say this, but I will. There's an 80% chance that if you're actually serious about quitting, and there's 2 ways to do it, either gradually through e-cigarettes that don't have any chemicals in them, or cold turkey, 80% chance of success.
With follow-up, okay?
Right, it's got to be some accountability
with
and follow-up.
follow-up. So you can't just quit smoking and then not check in, whether it's checking in with me or a therapist or a Smokers Anonymous group or having some sort of support system. That is the key.
Absolutely.
Because you're literally dropping an unhealthy defense mechanism for human connection.
Yeah, you're trying. Yeah, you have to replace it
Right?
with something.
You're replacing it. You're replacing a disconnect, which is smoking, because that's a disconnect, and you're replacing it with a connect, which is support from another human being. And so again, we're back to the connect and the disconnect. And of course, another very popular defense mechanism is overeating. So nice and soothing, right?
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, you start looking like one of those circles in panel number 5 for those who overdo the defense mechanism, right? And it just starts patting your belly and your body, and inside that cocoon, you feel really safe. But the thing about defense mechanisms is that they choke you down, literally. So you might feel good in your food bubble, but after a while you may develop heart problems, diabetes, plaque in your arteries. You might start feeling the depression of the food, the poisonous effects of what you're eating. So that's what I mean by an unhealthy defense mechanism. A healthy defense mechanism, on the other hand, might be something like, I'm going to defend myself from getting sick, so I'll go exercise. I'm going to defend myself from getting sick, so I'll eat right. I'm going to defend myself from toxic people, so I'm really going to study who I connect with and who I make my partner, even a friend, or whether it's a love partner or a business partner. You don't want to invite other people who could, and we'll get more into this in panel number 6, other people who could really break you down.
Yes.
Right. So, as you could see, there's just a garden variety of defense mechanisms, and they range from unhealthy all the way to healthy.
Well, we're going
and
to touch on those because there are definitely a plethora of different
plethora.
plethora
Yes.
of different defense mechanisms. And you've been listening to Dr. Judy WTF. You can find us on the internet at www.drjudywtf. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. And you can pull our shows on Stitcher and well as iTunes and here at UBN Network. And we are on panel 5 of the 9-panel system that Dr. Judy's developed, and it's defense mechanisms. So let's go through some of the defense mechanisms. And I'm actually going to I was doing a lot of research, and then I decided to finish my research by reading Judy's book, and I should have just started there. It's got a wealth and a plethora of information. So there's basically 3 types of defense mechanisms that she breaks down in the book. There's unhealthy defense mechanisms, less unhealthy defense mechanisms, and then healthy ones. So, and we have 7 unhealthy ones, and we've made jokes about the first one. That's denial, right? The refusal to accept reality, the fact that a painful event, thought, or feeling did not exist. For example, a person who is functioning alcoholic will often deny they're having a drinking problem, but point out how well they function at their job and in their relationships, at least when they're sober.
At least then.
At least that. Another one is regression. Earlier stage of development is the face of unacceptable thoughts or impulses. Adolescents who are overwhelmed with fear, anger, or growing sexual impulses might start exhibiting earlier childhood behaviors as climbing or clinging or bedwetting. Under great stress, an adult may refuse to leave their bed or engage in everyday activities.
You see, we go back to that period of time when we were wounded. That's the regression.
Well,
it's going back to that other stage.
And there's a third one, which is really fun, is acting out.
That's fun.
Oh, yeah. I don't even need to elaborate on that one. Dissociation. The extreme of that is the multiple personality disorder. But when a person loses track of time and or a person thought processing or memories or splits off from themselves because reality is too unbearable. That's definitely a coping mechanism.
I want
to
just elaborate on that because people think about psychosis as somebody who's crazy, and they sure do look that way, except that psychosis or a way of splitting off from reality is a very appropriate thing to do. For example, if you are being hurt as an infant, child, can't cope with child abuse, you can't cope with that level of pain, you can't cope with that, so the best place to go is to leave. Just leave in your mind and split off into another world. The problem is that once the danger is gone, person might never come back, or they don't really trust to come back. And so they stay in that state, and a healthy defense mechanism now starts looking like a really crazy defense mechanism. And again, this is all about updating the files.
Yes, I can understand that, and it definitely needs to be updated. And unfortunately, it can't be done by yourself. It's got to be done with some psychological help. So getting back to the unhealthy defense mechanisms, the fifth one is, I think, what a lot of us men do, and that's compartmentalize. A lesser form of dissociation.
But not you, right?
Well,
you don't do that.
I admit to being part of the male persuasion.
But you're evolved, right?
I am definitely evolving. A lesser form of dissociation where parts of oneself are separated from awareness of other parts and behaving as one had separate sets of values. Right? I don't know about values, but we're able to compartmentalize different situations and different things.
Just curious, do you have an example of a way that you do it? Not to put you on the spot.
Lord.
Oh Lord. Let's get juicy here.
Maybe I'll have an argument with my girlfriend, and then kind of just shut down emotionally and go to work.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
I think guys are better able to do that than women are.
As opposed to resolve it on the spot.
Well, due to time or the intensity of the discussion that we might be having.
That makes sense.
Doesn't warrant more of a discussion or resolution or even a dealing with it. So I don't know if that's a fair example, but
And sometimes that's healthy because you'll go back to it. It's not like you're avoiding it permanently, but
correct.
sometimes it's nice to compartmentalize something and then come back to it when it's better timing. You have more space to really work it through. And I think you're right. Men are better at it. Women let those incidents bleed through into their lives, and so they'll be bothered by it, let's say, for the entire day, and won't be able to concentrate, won't be able to really work sometimes. And yeah.
And so, for example, separate it from awareness from other parts of behaving as if the separate acts and values. As an example, one might be an honest person who cheats on their income taxes. So, in other words, I guess they feel it's okay to cheat the government because they really don't need the money.
So usually they're honest, yes, and then in this little
Right.
area they just kind of split off from that.
They don't split. They just fudge.
They fudge.
They just fudge a little.
Okay.
6 is projection. To falsely ascribe a person's undesired thoughts, feelings, or impulses onto another person who does not have these thoughts, feelings, or impulses. For example, a spouse may be angry at their significant other for not listening when the fact is the angry spouse is the one that isn't listening.
Isn't that a great defense? Just project it all on the other person, and they get so defensive about it that they don't even notice that you done it. I like that one.
That you do, huh?
I like
okay.
it. Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
It's it's upcoming in a really, really great, fantastic book.
I'm a martial artist. I do Taekwondo. There are many different ways to defend and attack, and this one I think is very clever. Just make the other person feel as though they did it, and you're so busy, right, describing it to them that they never notice that it was really you. It's kind of clever.
It's very clever.
Yes.
And I had a friend that was really notorious for doing that. You'd bring something up and they always throw it back at you. Well, you da 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 da. It's like whoa.
And then there's another step to it, by the way, projective identification, which is a situation where, let's say, I project on you something that I'm feeling, ascribe it to you, and you identify it with, so you actually buy what I'm selling. Okay?
Wow.
You buy it. And then once you buy it, you're on the hook, and I'm off the hook, and you're feeling it, and you're defending against it, and I'm going, yes.
Hook, line, and sinker. I passed the buck big time.
That's it.
And then the last one of the unhealthy defense mechanisms of the 7, that is in Judy's book, is reaction formation. The converting of unwanted or dangerous thoughts, feelings, or impulses into their opposites. For instance, a woman who is very angry with her boss and would like to quit her job, but may instead be overly kind and generous toward her boss and express a desire to keep working there forever. Right? I mean, that's definitely extremes.
Right.
I think women are better at that than we are.
Do you think?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, we just know how to butter it up, don't we?
Right? Absolutely. And if you disagree, call in. Get on the couch of Dr. Judy. And the number is area code 323-843-2826.
That's the butter the BS defense mechanism.
Yes, definitely want to.
That's right.
Butter the BS.
I think it's in the manual, the DSM, which is our diagnostic manual. I have to look that up.
Is that different than co-signing the BS?
It's all in the same category.
Same category?
Yeah.
Okay. So those are the unhealthy defense mechanisms. We had denial, regression, acting out, dissociation, compartmentalization, projection, and reaction formation. Moving on, we have 5 less unhealthy defense mechanisms. First one is repression. The unconscious blocking of unacceptable thoughts, feelings, and impulses. Repressed memories, for example, are those that have been unconsciously blocked from the access or view. But because many is very malleable and ever-changing, memories can be filtered and altered. So that means there's big debate whether there is such a thing in the first place, because you're not sure or not certain.
You're talking about repressed memories
yes.
and this whole controversy of whether things happen. Well, Freud thought that these sexual fantasies were actually fantasies, that when he was doing his analysis, he thought that all of these conversations that were coming up were actually fantasy conversations. So turns out that I guess some of them must have been real, because it's impossible that no one got molested and that nobody got beaten and that no child abuse occurred. That's pretty
That's extreme.
unbelievable,
That's
isn't
extreme.
it?
Yeah.
And then I think that they started looking into, well, maybe it's more than just a fantasy. So I say, WTF? What the Freud?
What the Freud? In other words, would
Yeah.
that be more? Well, was he believing that perception is reality as opposed to
Well,
reality is reality?
I don't know, but I sure would love to put him on the couch, because listen, he wasn't the healthiest tool in the shed either. I mean, he had an extreme cocaine addiction, didn't he? He
He
was
probably
snorting
did.
it
Well,
up.
well, he had to, stay alert and listen to his patients.
That's true, and
Yeah.
that's why I shortened the therapy to 9 panels of a mind map as opposed to 9 years on a couch. So when you get on the couch, it's not for 9 years.
No, certainly
not
no,
at all.
not and definitely not. As we just heard earlier in the show, the guy who had extreme OCD got to the foundation of the cause, and within 4 sessions had improved mentionably. So number 2 of the less unhealthy defense mechanisms, displacement. The redirecting of thoughts and feelings and impulses directed at one person or object but taken out upon another. For example, a man who gets angry at his boss, but he can't express his anger for his fear of being fired, so instead he comes home and kicks the dog or starts a big argument with his wife. Right? Kind of
Right.
vents a little bit.
Because it's dangerous to talk to the boss, because his bread is buttered there,
That's
right? So
correct.
he can't really, maybe he doesn't have good communication skills, or he's scared that if he opens his mouth, the boss will close it permanently.
His
Who
boss
knows?
might be a jerk.
Right. And so what's he to do with these feelings? He just displaces them to
Yep.
wife and dog, or dog and wife. Which one first? How does that go?
Usually, hopefully, it's a dog first.
Oh God, I love dogs.
I know you got two great ones.
Touchy.
Intellectualization, the overemphasis of thinking when confronted with an unacceptable impulse, situation, or behavior without employing any emotions whatsoever. Example, a person who has just been given a terminal medical diagnosis, instead of expressing their sadness and grief, focus instead on the details of the possible fruitless medical procedures.
And
Fruitless
that's kind
medical
of like
procedures. huh?
fruitless, and that's kind of like the denial that you were talking about, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And this one's a good one. Rationalization. Putting something into a different light for one's perceptions or behaviors in the face of changing reality. For instance, a woman who starts dating a man she really, really likes is suddenly dumped by the man for no reason. She reframes the situation with, "I suspected he was a loser all along."
Yeah, that'll take care of her feelings of loss, won't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then lastly, if less unhealthy defense mechanisms is undoing. The attempt to take back an unconscious behavior or thought that is unacceptable or unhurtful. This was really interesting. And we've all done this one. For example, after realizing you just insulted your significant other in the worst, biggest way, unintentionally, mind you, you might spend the next hour countering the damage by praising their beauty, charm, and intellect.
That'll undo it. For sure they'll forget about
Oh,
that
yeah.
faux pas that you made.
As we say, it is impossible to put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Okay.
Precisely. And then we have three healthy defense mechanisms. So these are the ones we all aspire to be, I guess. Huh? Sublimination. I'll say that word. The channeling of unacceptable impulses, thoughts, and emotions into more acceptable ones. For example, when a person has sexual impulses they would like not to act upon, they might instead focus on rigorous exercise, humor, or fantasy.
Take it to another level.
Take it to another level,
Right.
or I guess that'd be kind of a little bit of like a diversion, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
like
you're putting your emphasis somewhere else.
Right, or just take it into an art form. Let's say that you want to sublimate something that's not healthy. You just turn it into something that, like write a song about it, or do a poem around it, or painting around it. Instead of acting out on it, just sublimate it to something else. A higher level.
A higher level.
Right.
Okay.
Artistic, spiritual, something like that. Right.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
That's usually good for a while. Next is compensation. A process of psychologically counterbalancing perceived weakness by genuinely emphasizing strength in other areas. For instance, when a person says, I might not know how to cook, but I can sure do the dishes. So, I mean, that might be a fact, right? They don't know how to cook. They can barely boil water, but, they can clean the kitchen up after it's messed up.
Yeah, that's not unhealthy,
No,
is it?
no, it's
sort of
absolutely
like
not. No, it's
saying, okay, well, these are my strengths, so I'm just going to get into my strengths, and that's where it is. And maybe their partner is good at the other piece of it. So today, actually, in the lecture, they were talking about the CEU lecture, which is still on my mind. They were talking about strengthening your strengths and hiring your weaknesses.
well, back in the day,
Uh-huh.
we all have weaknesses and we all have strengths, and in many instances, it was always attempting to overcome our weaknesses. And many times I believe that's at the expense of our strengths, as opposed to capitalizing on our strengths and then finding another individual or somebody else to actually assist us with our weakness.
I really like that idea because I'm so computer unsavvy,
Yeah,
and
so?
I like to do what I do, and so
Right.
I'd rather farm it out to somebody who's really good at it
Well,
and free me to do the work that I do.
Well, then the real big here. I know we're getting off topic, but it's really apropos. I think is you find somebody who's has their strength, which is your weakness. You make their work their play, as opposed to trying to figure out and work yourself through it, because you won't. There's no way you can overcome your weakness. It is what it is. So find someone else who it's their strength and they love doing it, and it's actually they're so good at it they play at it, than trying to overcome it and do it yourself.
I mean, and some would say challenge your weakness and expand it. I could see that too, that it would be healthy, probably healthy for me to take a computer class, so I'm just not such a nerd around it. But, ultimately, where do I want to be spending my time is I want to be spending it on my passion, not really learning something that doesn't interest me that much in the first place.
Correct. I mean, like, for example, Bill Gates was brilliant in the computer world, but how much time do you think he actually spent in front of a computer?
Right.
Right? He didn't. So he delegated it and capitalized on his strengths.
Which freed his mind up to be creative.
Absolutely.
Right.
See? And the last one is, and I'm not a none too soon here, these are the 3 healthy defense mechanisms. Assertiveness. And this emphasizes a person's need or thoughts in a manner that is respectful, direct, and firm. Assertiveness falls in between a passive and aggressive communication style, striking a balance between speaking up for themselves and listening.
Right, as opposed to an avoidant defense mechanism. So if you're assertive, then you can draw the boundaries, right? And you can
Yes.
still be in the game. But if you're avoidant, then you withdraw and you're not really in the game. There's no interconnection. But you're in your bubble and you're safe. And the other way, you still stay in the group.
And again, being assertive does require a little bit of self-esteem and security in the relationship that you're in. Right?
And communication skills.
And communication
assertion skills.
Which in all relationships, I believe we are a little bit more secure than we feel we are. So you might want to try being just a little more assertive, and I promise you, in 9 times out of 10, it will surprise you the results, and I assure you it'll be positive.
And then we talk about the peaceful healing dialogue.
Yes, and the end of that chapter we talk about the peaceful healing dialogue, the PhD.
And so one way that you can be assertive is simply by asking the person respectfully if it's okay for you to talk about a certain subject, and then sharing with them your truth. And that's assertive. Just simply sharing your truth, not in an unkind way, but really owning your own stuff and self-reflecting. And the more you can talk about your piece in the problem, the more they'll be able to talk about their piece in the problem. And guess what? As you demonstrate non-defensiveness, you're really being the cause of creating an atmosphere of non-defensiveness in the person across from you. So then they're going to start sharing about their piece in it. And then ultimately, it's not going to be this defense, isolated to unconnected people in the room. It'll be 2 people who are wanting to communicate, wanting to share, remembering, of course, that we really are wired to connect.
Yes, we are.
Unless we've been so hurt that we just don't want to, because connection is just painful or reminds us of too much pain. but still, we are wired to connect. So these defense mechanisms, they serve us, and some of them obviously don't.
And if you would like a copy of the Peaceful Healing Dialogue, Judy's developed one, and it's actually on one page.
Yeah.
Before the book comes out, you can actually email us at info@DrJudyWTF, and we promise that we'll shoot it right back to you and get your copy. So if you want to have a PhD, Peaceful Healing Dialogue, with someone you love or don't, we'd be happy to do that.
And also, if you want to be on our mailing list and get regular reminders of our show
And topics coming up,
please just
send your email address.
Send them over to the info box.
info@drjudywtf.com as well. And we can do that, and it's a growing list. So we appreciate all you that are writing in. So that's it, folks. Time for us to shrink that tune. This is kind
really
of
already.
Well,
is time the tyrant once again?
The clock is the tyrant. Yes.
Oh, the clock is the tyrant.
The clock is the tyrant. This was kind of my request under the auspices of acting out in terms of the defense mechanisms. It's a fun Beatles song entitled "Savoy Truffle." So Dr. G is going to try and interpret this one. This is going to be fun.
Well, it's by the
Beatles.
I love the Beatles.
Oh, absolutely.
60s
and then, of course, we're going to play the tune afterward. Creme tangerine and mollamant, a ginger sling with a pineapple heart, a coffee dessert. Yes, you know it's good news, but you'll have to have them all pulled out after the Savoy truffle.
So I was reading a little bit about this because when I saw the title, I thought, yikes, what the hell is a Savoy truffle?
WTF is
WTF. And so I started doing a little research, and I found out that this is an ode to Eric Clapton's most wonderfully delicious defense mechanism, which is chocolates.
Interesting.
Right. Yeah,
Wow,
I
okay.
learned that today.
Wow.
You know,
Well,
like a
fascinating.
little trivial pursuit question.
Cool.
And so, really, what we're talking about here is this wonderful chocolatey and pineapples, and it's just delicious, right? On the
Yes.
surface of it, it's delicious. However, defense mechanisms, the unhealthy ones, have a price tag, and in this case, it's pulling out teeth, rotting teeth.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Okay.
We pay a price.
There's always
Eye for an
there's
eye,
always-
tooth for a tooth.
and there's always a cost.
A truffle for truffle and a truffle for tooth. Something like that.
And by the way, if you want to see this, it's really fun to watch on YouTube. Someone's done a really good interpretation of it on YouTube. Just punch it in. Cool cherry cream, a nice apple tart. I feel your taste all the time. We're apart. Coconut fudge really blows down those blues, but you'll have to have them all pulled out after the Savoy truffle.
So this is so beautifully said because the fudge, the chocolate, which is supposed to be an antidepressant, right?
Yes.
Is pulling out the blues. But again, look at the price. Well, he's not talking about diabetes. He's referring to teeth here.
Okay.
But same concept. Feels good and then doesn't.
There's a cost.
Yeah,
You might not feel it right. You might not feel it now, but when the pain cuts through, you're going to know and how. The sweet is going to fill your head. When it becomes too much, you're going to shout out loud.
And I love the Freudian slip. You know, you said sweet, but it says sweat, and the sweet makes us sweat, and that's
The sweat's going, yeah.
and that
again,
is
that's
where.
pulling tooth.
Oh yeah.
But chocolate's sweet.
Well, yeah, but here it's going to make him sweat because he's going to get his tooth pulled out.
Yikes.
His
But you'll
defense mechanism is
but
not
you'll
gonna
have
work.
to have them all pulled out after the Savoy truffle. You know, that way you eat you are, but what is sweet now turns so sour. We all know oh la di blah da, but you can show me where are you?
Well, here he's talking about kind of bottoming out, right? You'll have to pull them all out. You know that what you eat, you are. So ultimately, this is going to cave in on him as like a really bad cavity. And the obla-di, blah-da thing is, you know, remember that song, obla-di, obla-da, life goes on. But in this
Yes.
case, life won't go on because it'll kill you if you eat too much. That was kind of his personal joke in the song. Is like, no, life's not going to go on if you keep doing this.
Wow. And then lastly, of course, is you'll have them all pulled out after the Savoy Truffle. So that's Savoy Truffle by none other than the Beatles. And that's our tune, that's our song, and that's our show. So again, if you want to write us, you can do info@DrJudyWTF. I'm your host, Walt Lusk. You've been on the couch with Dr. Judy Rosenberg. Next week, we will do panel 6 of the 9-panel mind map. And until then, folks, God bless and stay tuned.
God bless.
Let's see here if I can find the button. There we go.